Alright, so you're looking at here is a steering knuckle off of a 2014 Hyundai Sonata. This video is going to be a little bit different because normally I show you how to take these off when we're doing a wheel bearing on them. But this customer just called me and asked me if I would press the bearings in and out for him, that he would take the knuckle off himself. I guess to save a little bit of money or whatever. So I said, yeah, that's fine. Let me know when you get it off. So this is a steering knuckle off a 2014 Hyundai Sonata. It's pretty straightforward like most of these. It's got the two bolts for the strut. You got the tie rod, the lower ball joint, and the axle, and of course the speed sensor, and then it pops off. But like I said, I don't have the car here. This was brought to me, so I'm just going to show you how to do the bearing with the press. Someone chowdered up. He said he didn't do it. I don't know who did it, but someone chowdered up the. This one's broke off, and this one's pretty ate up. The two bolts that hold the rotor against the hub. Now you don't really need these on there. My understanding, the reason why they put these on there is to go down, you know, when they're on the factory line, to hold the rotors up against the hub. That's what I've been told. I don't know if that's fact or not, but this one looks like I might be able to put an impact on it and screw it off without having to drill it or something weird like that. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get these off. You shouldn't have to do. You should have to deal with this. What you do to get these off normally is get yourself an impact driver, a Phillips impact driver like this, and you put those on the screws and just beat on them, and it should loosen them. A lot of people don't use those, and then they end up chowdering them up like this one is. So anyway, if you're going to do this yourself or do brakes or whatever, just invest in one of these impact screwdrivers, and it's no problem getting these off usually 99% of the time. So don't try to use a regular screwdriver and get them out. You know, I mean, you may get them out, but it's much easier with the impact screwdriver, and you won't have all these issues here. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can beat this one out with the impact screwdriver. Still a little bit of head left on it, and then we'll get this rotor out of the way because we need this rotor off to press this hub and bearing in and out. So that's the first thing I'm going to do is just address that, and then alright, so the first thing I do before I take the hub out, you can actually pull this hub out first, but the first thing I do is take this ring off that's inside here. You can use snap ring pliers, or what I usually do is just use a big screwdriver that I just dropped. And this ring has notches in it. You can kind of get the screwdriver behind there and just pry up on it, and it should come right out. So now the next thing we're going to do is press the center hub out. You get this released from the center, and this is the only step that I do without a press. I put this on blocks, and then I beat down with this bearing driver and just knock this off. These usually aren't too hard to beat out, and the reason I do that is just because I have a smaller press, and it's easier for me just to beat these out real quick than it is to try to press them out, find the right cup for underneath and all that good stuff. So anyway, I'll show you what I do on getting this out, and then we'll go about pressing this bearing. Alright, so like I said, I do this a little bit different than maybe some people do. I have a smaller press, so I don't have the big cups to go underneath this to press the hub out, so I just beat it out, and I just get something out of my driver kit. But you could use a socket or whatever you can, and you put it on the middle of this. So you got the bearing on the outside, and right in the middle is your hub, and you want to put something that'll fit inside your hub but not hit this bearing. And I've already beat this a couple times. It doesn't take much to pull these out, to drop these out. So I got that in there on that hub, and I just use my driver, and we'll just beat this out the rest of the way. It shouldn't be too much. There you go. So you can see it's not a whole lot. I really didn't beat it very much off camera. I just got started. So all you're doing is trying to find something that will fit over this without going past it and hitting the bearing itself, because if you hit the bearing you won't ever get this out. So you're just going to drive this out, and Now all we got to do on this is get this part of the race off, and we got to press this out. So what I'm going to do next is get this race out off of here. There's a couple different methods. You can, if you have a torch, oxygen acetylene torch, you can heat it up and it'll pop off. I'm actually out of oxygen on my torch, so I'm going to do the old school cut method. And all you do on that is just take a cut-off wheel and go at an angle, and you cut a relief in this, and then it pops off. You don't want to cut all the way down into the actual hub. You just want to cut a relief slot, and you kind of come in at an angle and just cut a relief slot in there. I'll kind of show you on. I put it in a vise, and I'll kind of show you what I do. Usually only takes a few minutes, and then these pops right off. Like I said, if you have an oxygen acetylene torch, you can put these in a vise and put something underneath here to pop it up away from the vise a little bit, and put the torch on here, and if you get it hot enough, it'll pop right off without even touching it. It'll just slide off. So anyway, I'm out of oxygen, so that's not an option for me right now. So we're going to cut this one off the old-fashioned way and move on from there. Alright, so I got this hub up in a vise, and I'm going to use my cutoff wheel. And you can see there's no guard on that cutoff wheel because I pretty much do what I want. I don't follow the rules. So first thing we do when we get a cutoff wheel, we remove the guard off it. Anyway, what you're going to do is just come in at an angle and cut a relief into it. I'll kind of show it. The compressor's probably going to kick on, so I'm just going to do it for a little couple seconds, show you what I'm doing, and then we'll pick it back up after I get it off. Alright, so the compressor kicked on, so I shut you down, but I cut on this probably less than 3 minutes, and once you get a nice little groove in there, you just take something and kind of split it a little bit, and then you can put it behind it and kind of push it off. So this pushes right off, and you can see here, I didn't cut all the way through it. There's no marring on the hub itself, and it's not all the way through. There you can see it. Just go on an angle, take your time, and kind of watch the bottom here where your blade's at, and just don't go all the way through, and because you don't need to. And then if you do that, you'll mar up your hub. You don't want to do that. So like I said, it took maybe 3 minutes at the most to cut this off, so it's not a big deal either way. So just take your time, cut a little relief notch in it, and then pop it off. So this is ready to go back in the new bearing. So we'll take this out of the hub, and then we'll go over to the press and start pressing the bearing. Alright, so I got this set up in the press. I'll kind of show you what I got going on here. You want to set it up to where the bearing obviously goes down, out. You took that ring off right here, and that's where the bearing comes out at. So you want to press it downward. I know this is basic stuff, but if you have access to a press or you've never done this, I'm just trying to go over it. Put a cup or something big enough to catch that bearing underneath it. So you put your cup there, you put your knuckle over that and center it, because you don't want your bearing pressing down on your cup under here, because then it won't come out. So you want to kind of center that as best you can, and then what you want to do is find something to put in here that'll press just the bearing. And anyway, I have an adapter kit. I actually have a front end adapter kit for bearings that you can do on the car, but I usually just take them off and do them off the car because it's easier for me. And anyway, there's different companies that sell these if you don't have sockets or whatever. It's not a bad investment if you're going to do some of these wheel bearings to get the kit. Just look for front wheel drive wheel bearing kit, and it'll have all these cups and attachments in it. If you don't have access to big enough sockets or whatever it is that you would need. So I'm just going to go ahead and press this down. You're going to kind of center it. You can see my press has seen better days in some ways. It's a little bit bent, but it still works good. So we're just going to press this down, get it going. And once you get the press close to the cup, you'll want to recenter everything and make sure it's going down straight. Sometimes a little bit of challenge for me because my press is a little, I need to bend that back or weld a new one on. But not today. Sometimes you get that kind of creaking noise. That's the bearing moving a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and readjust it a little. It's pressing on more one side than the other. You want to go down as straight as possible, in the center as possible, so that bearing. I'm getting a lot of that noise because I'm, you know, it's rusty, and then I have not centered perfectly. Keeps moving on me. And it's moving again. This would be a little bit easier if my boom here wasn't bent. These don't have this much trouble with it. See if I can get right on there. Alright. Starting to come out. I'm going to double check. Make sure it's not center on the bottom here. Kind of binding up a little, so I'm going to take it off all the way and just check underneath. Alright, after some finagling, I finally got this thing to start going down. Really rusty in there. So you're just going to press it down until the bearing falls inside this cup here, which it looks like it has. So once you get that off, we'll go ahead and pull this over to the bench and clean out the inside of it and lube it up, and then we'll start pressing the new one in. Alright, so here we are back on the bench. Here's the bearing that came out. It's pretty destroyed. Sometimes that happens if the bearings wore out. In this case, I don't think the thing I was pushing on against the bearing was perfectly centered on it. So it just destroyed the bearing, which is no big deal. It's got to come out anyway. And, you know, it comes out pretty easy once you get that initial break free on it. So I'm just going to go ahead and clean up the inside of this with the wire wheel. And not so much the inside part with bearing rides. I'm not going to touch that too much, but just mainly this outside. Try to get rid of some of this rust. And then we'll put a little grease down in there, and then we'll start pressing that new bearing in. Alright, on this wheel bearing, it looks exactly the same on both sides. Always check that. Sometimes they'll have instructions that come with them. Some of them have a magnetic ring on one side and then a steel ring on the other side. And the reason for that is for the speed sensor or the wheel sensor reads the bearing. This one appears to be the exact same on both sides. So we're going to just, I already cleaned this up and lubed it. We're just going to slide it down in there and start pressing it back in. We'll go back over the press, but just be aware of that. If there comes with any instructions, make sure to read them and make sure to put this in the right way. But this one's the same on both ends, so you can put them in either way on this one. Alright, so it's kind of opposite when you put it back together. Just flip the knuckle over and put the bearing in, and then find something to go over the bearing, the outside edge of it. Don't push on just the middle of the bearing because you'll destroy the bearing. So you want something that'll go around the outside edge of this bearing, and you just press it in. And if you got it lubed up and cleaned up, it should go in pretty easy like this one is. And once you bottom out, just stop. You can't force it anymore. Once it stops, if it's level and starting to go down and everything's going good, and it stops, just stop there. There's no point in keep cranking it. You can't make it any tighter. What's happening is the bearing's bottom out on the end of this knuckle, and it can't go anywhere else. So there's no point in cranking on it. So go ahead and crank it down, and then the last thing we'll do is put that ring back in, and we'll press the hub back in. So anyway, I'm just going to finish pressing this down, and then Alright, so once you got it pressed in, it should be bottomed out on this side. You can see a little bit of the grease is coming out. It's bottomed out. And then all we're going to do is just put this snap ring back in. I'm going to go ahead and do that over the bench real quick. Just press it in there and use your screwdriver and pry it down into the groove until it snaps in. And if this bearing's down all the way, then it should snap in no problem. And then all we got left is just to press that hub back in. And then I'm going to go ahead and take this back over to his house and let him... Alright, so if you made it this far, you're on the home stretch. So just put your hub upside down, the studs facing downward on your press. Put your spindle over it, going in the right direction. Of course, you want your spindle and the shield, facing each other because you put the rotor on. So everything has to be facing up. You just don't want to put it on backwards. If you put it on backwards, you'll ruin your bearing. You have to start over. So find something to put inside here that lines up with the middle of your bearing. If you go to your outside of your bearing, sometimes it'll push that race a little bit past where it's supposed to go. So I like to find something that's right in the middle that presses on it, and all you do is just press it on down until it bottoms out. Alright, and once it bottoms out, you're good. Just give it like another half a pump. Make sure it's seated, and then you're good to go. That's all there is to it. You pull this out of the press and start reassembling the car. So I know this isn't exactly my normal videos where I show the car, but like I said, I didn't have the car, so I'm just showing how to do the bearing in case you decide to do it on yourself and you have access to a press. If nothing else, you see if you do have bad wheel bearings, this is what goes into changing a wheel bearing on a Hyundai Sonata 2014. A lot of the foreign cars have this press-in style bearing, and if you don't have a press, it's pretty hard to do. Otherwise, you can get those on the car presses, and those work okay, I guess. I just prefer to take them apart and put them in here, but I do have the kit to do that, and I think Harbor Freight sells them and a few other places. Well, everybody sells them, but you may be able to rent that too at the auto parts store. And if you have a press, it might be worth renting that anyway, because it has the cups and the different things that you need to line up if you don't have sockets or whatever. Putting these in, there's not like an exact science on it. It depends on what you have available to you. It is one way or the other as far as putting them together, but people use different attachments and different ways to set up their press. This is just how I do it. Do quite a few of these, and it's always worked for me. So anyway, that's pretty much it for putting the wheel bearing in 2014 Hyundai Sonata. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Hopefully we'll catch you on the next one. Have a good day, and God bless. Thanks.